Hey guys, Jonathon Kendall here. I'm the CEO of MentorBox, and I was just on the Dynamic Lifestyle podcast with Chris and Eric. I had a really good time, and I think we talked about a lot of things that will help you in your life and your business, so check it out.
Jonathon Kendall, CEO now of MentorBox. How you doing, man? Welcome.
Good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming to the show.
Yeah, of course. This is the opposite. You were on the MentorBox podcast.
Yeah, that was 2-3 years ago in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that interview.
Yeah, now we're in Los Angeles.
So now we turn the tables. We're like, oh, we got to interview Jonathon. So yeah, I'm excited, man.
Yeah, this is gonna be great.
Yeah, and it's like, and I said CEO now of MentorBox, right? Because we've actually interviewed Alex Mayer before, right? But now you're the CEO. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. I'm really excited about that. But man, it's really good to see you. I know it's been about 6 months. You're looking sharp. Come in here in a nice suit, looking clean cut as always. So, I mean, I know Chris is ready too. He's been excited about this interview.
I'm excited about this one, man. Yeah, I have.
Yeah, this is gonna be fun.
Yeah. So we want to start out. We like starting off our podcast with just doing dynamic, rapid questions. You know, just kind of getting you the feeling of things. Just asking you rapid questions. So. We live in LA, right? So there's tons of billboards everywhere that you drive by and see. So if you had a billboard, if you were able to have a billboard, what would you have on there and why?
A series of mantras, probably.
Okay.
We just said this before we started rolling. The obstacle is the way.
Yep.
Extreme ownership. Action cures fear. Always do the right thing. Yeah, a couple of mantras like that. Probably.
Okay. I like it.
Try to give someone, pause. What does that mean? I'm obsessed with the idea of mantras, basically. I think that there's this idea from Marcus Aurelius where he talks about the equanimity game.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically like a game for stoicism. So there's a stimuli, something happens to you in your life, and you're normally, let's say, equanimous, and then it takes you off, and the game is how quickly can you get back to square one. And some people, if it's like intense trauma, for example, it might be years or a decade,
Yeah.
right? Where they're just constantly ruminating about something. And the idea is, how can you turn that, what would otherwise be seen as maybe a negative or some problem, into a learning experience, and then use it to your advantage. And the faster you can do that, the game is how fast can you do that?
Right.
Maybe it's a year, then it's 6 months, then it's a month, then it's a week, then it's a day, then it's an hour, and you eventually get to the point where it's 3 minutes and 1 minute, 30 seconds. And for me, those mantras are tools to get back to it as quickly as possible. So if I have let's say I'm feeling a little bit lazy, or I want to procrastinate about something, it's really probably I'm just fearing getting started. It's like when you go to the gym, a lot of people don't go to the gym because they're thinking about it, but once they're at the gym, they love it and they're feeling it, and they get their music and they're pumped up and they're ready to go, and afterwards you feel great every single time, and everyone knows that, but beforehand you're afraid of the theoretical consequence of going whatever. And so for me, something like action cures fear is a very fast way for me to get out of my laziness or procrastination, and there's a million of them, right? So for you, you've got to come up with your own, but those are a couple that I use.
Yeah, I like those.
Absolutely powerful. And so I know you're huge on consuming content. I know you're a constant student, right? So how are you consuming content right now? Is it visually? Is it through audio? Is it actually sitting down reading the book?
Yeah, I'm really systematic about it. So I have usually 4 books that I'm reading at the same time. So one, I have a morning routine where I read in the morning and I take little notes on a physical book. And usually that's something that I can work on in like personal business. So not necessarily always related to MentorBox, but something for my personal self. It's always nonfiction, but that's my little way of approaching that book. And it's a part of a longer morning routine, but I'm always working on one book in the morning. And then I always have a audiobook that I listen to while I work out, and an audiobook while I'm going to work and coming back from work. And then I have a bathroom book, and that just kind of takes care of itself. And then I have a night book. And the night book is usually a biography or something that's a little bit longer or more inspirational. Like I just got done with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and now I'm on to Ben Franklin, that sort of thing. So I'm usually doing 4 at the same time. The audiobooks go the fastest because my commute is about a half hour each way, so that's about an hour, and then in the morning I'm working out for about a half hour or so.
You can increase
I
decrease
also
speed.
I also 2x it. So
Yeah.
unless it's like a really extreme British accent, the narrator.
Yeah.
Sometimes if the accent is really thick, I can't catch it as quickly, so I'll put it down to 1.5 or something
Yeah.
like that. But usually any American author I can get. Right now I'm not doing any fiction. I wish I were doing more, but I'm pretty hardcore in my career phase of my life, I
Yeah.
guess. There's seasons of your life, and I very much have a vision that I do every single day that includes the chill farmer, philosopher, writer
Mhm.
with a big library and hanging out and going on long walks with my dog and having wine with other smart people and just talking about important things.
Yeah.
That will come, but I feel like I need to earn that freedom.
Sure.
And right now I'm in the earning phase.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
love it. What are 2 skills an entrepreneur should learn?
Learning how to learn quickly,
Okay.
and humility, probably.
I like that.
These are both soft skills. I mean,
Yeah.
hard skills would probably be learning how to build a funnel that converts, and mastering paid advertising. So if you can combine those two, if you can build a machine, and nowadays that's really a Shopify store, ClickFunnels, Lead Magnet, or something like that, that you can convert. Let's say the cost per acquiring a customer is $1, and you can get $2 out of it.
Yeah.
If you can master that skill, then there's really, the sky's the limit. Whatever the market cap is for that product is really the limit.
Yeah.
So those would be 2 hard skills, but for soft skills, the idea of humility and learning how to learn they're kind of 2 sides of the same coin,
Mhm.
right? Because another mantra, ego is the enemy. So I think a lot of people have this idea of like who they're protective of their ego, of their identity, and they feel worried about being wrong, or they're hurt, right? This is like the second agreement in Don McGovern's 4 core agreements. Don't take anything personally, and a lot of it is you're identifying, you're allowing an outside stimulus to sort of define you in a way. And I feel like for entrepreneurs especially, you are going to fail so often,
Yeah.
and so consistently for so long. Like there's no other way around it. And the stakes are high, because if I'm trying to master, let's say, piano, there's the worst case scenario is not as bad as the worst case scenario for an entrepreneur, because you're dealing with real money.
Exactly.
So if I don't get that great at piano playing,
It's like,
okay, whatever.
Yeah.
But if I risk the same amount of time and money and resources and probably social interactions, if you're really going to go hardcore into entrepreneurship, your team has to understand, your wife has to understand. You have to have the same vision, because we were talking about this earlier. Like, it's 100 hours a week. There's no time off. So, that humility in the sense that like being totally okay with failing over and over and over.
Yeah.
And then knowing that the answer is there's always some answer. But in order to get to the answer, you have to be obsessed with trying to find the answer, which is basically just learning obsessively. And then the faster you can do it, it's like a competitive advantage, right? So it's like, think about it this way: in math or in investing, if you have compound interest at 6% versus 12%, the line doesn't look that different, right? Like in the beginning, but after 30 years, you're not even in the same world, right? So the difference between being able to learn, let's just say, X at X speed versus being able to learn at 10X speed is not just 10 times faster, because it compounds, right? Because things that you lay a foundation, and then it's easier to the mastery, the tip of the spear, the tip of the hierarchy of competence, let's say. It's really, really difficult. It's easier to go from 8-minute mile to 7-minute mile than it is to go from 4 minutes 6 seconds to 4 minutes 3 seconds, right? Because once you're at the tip and you're like always, you're at like at the stage of mastery, it's really difficult to make any improvements. But to get there, and you know, if you can take that time that it would normally take from 10 years to 4 years, then you can, now you're playing in better waters. I guess.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Yeah.
What keeps you up at night?
That's a philosophical question. Probably some existential question about the nature of reality, which is intense, but I'm a fairly philosophical guy, and I'm obsessed with finding the deepest answers, and I really do want, my purpose of my life is, I feel, has more to do with these bigger questions than business, let's say. I feel like business is a means to an end, in a way. Yeah. It's a means to freedom, and it's learning the machine of capitalism and all of that, and that's really important. But for me, I really do, envision myself as a Steinbeckian figure, in the woods when I'm 65 years old, writing some, masterwork, some opus or something.
Yeah.
And it probably will have something to do with the nature of reality, or kindness or love, or some concept of God or compassion, or something that's maybe even the virtues, right? The fundamental virtues, rather than I can talk to you at length and get paid to talk at length about the idea of funnels and Facebook ads and marketing and all that kind of stuff. But underneath that is there's something I think more profound, and that sometimes gives me anxiety. The inability to have an answer to those questions, because the trying to master how to make this table, or how to figure out why electricity works the way it does. I know that if I go down the rabbit hole of sound engineering for 3 years, I'm probably going to figure it out, and I get it in a way. But a more interesting question is like, what is sound at all?
Right.
And what is the difference between sound and light? And wait, what's going on? What is reality? Those are questions that are a little bit spinnier to me, because even the greatest minds that have ever lived don't have the answers. So there's no, as you guys know, I'm obsessed with, if you want to learn how to do fencing, or how to manufacture a plastic bottle, or how to filter water, there's probably 15 people that have written a book about it, or have a course about it, or you could go intern under them and you could figure it out.
Yeah.
But the questions that I don't even think I could find a mentor for, because no one's figured it out, those are the questions that keep me.
Yeah.
Gotcha. That was deep.
Super interesting. Yeah. So what's something interesting that we don't know, or the world doesn't know about Jonathon? Something surprising.
I feel like that game, I always say that I can juggle really well. This is a game that people play with each other, right? I'm fairly good at juggling.
Okay.
In kind of a strange way. My grandpa juggled, and I thought it was just cool, and I wanted to copy him.
You never showed us this.
Yeah, I have. I can do a Rubik's Cube pretty fast. Yeah, I have like little, kind of magic tricks that I can do. But I don't know. I don't think either of those are interesting answers. Let's stick with that.
Okay. Yeah.
All right, Jonathon, you're off the hot seat. Man. After you took a sip of the coffee.
That went pretty deep.
Yeah, that went
for a hot
pretty deep.
seat. That wasn't exactly rapid fire.
It's fine. It's
But that's what I like about this, right? You'll have somebody else where it's like they're super short, like one sentence answers. That you went deep on all the questions. That's great. So first question. This is the burning question that I've been like wanting to know. Okay, is from COO to CEO at MentorBox. How did that happen? And before, let's just give some context to some of the listeners that don't know what a COO is. So that's a Chief Operating Officer, right? Okay.
Yeah.
That's like a step down from CEO. And maybe just a one sentence on what MentorBox is. If somebody is new to this, they don't know what MentorBox is.
Yeah, MentorBox turns books into videos.
Okay.
So instead of having to read a book, you can watch a course with the author teaching you what is in the book.
Yep. Okay. So how did that happen though, from COO to CEO? I mean, was there like deliberate steps? Was it a patience thing?
Yeah, I think an even better question is how did I go from copywriter to CEO?
Let's do it. Let's go start from there. Yeah.
Because I was in Mexico doing copywriting and ghostwriting for nonfiction books. Just living the laptop lifestyle, Tim Ferriss 4-hour work week.
Just eating the tacos.
Yeah, exactly. Taking advantage of the peso to dollar translation.
Yeah.
I mean, that book literally changed my life. I remember distinctly listening to it coming back from Toronto with my now wife, and listening to it and just being fascinated by the first chapter. And he was talking about, it's really a book about like how to learn quickly, but in a way it also is kind of it's trying to create a paradigm shift in people's brains about what's possible, right? And so you have this kind of predictable way that society or your parents or whatever, on average, will tell you what's the proper way of approaching your career or whatever it may be. And he says, "Oh, I was training to be in the finals of the World Championships for tango in Argentina while having a supplement business, a fitness supplement business that I worked on through my laptop and a bunch of virtual workers that was making me $100,000 a month, and so I had all this extra time, and so that's why I was in Argentina, and I was like, this is fascinating. I want a part of this, right?
Yeah.
How do you do this? So the first thing is you have to get a skill that you can monetize from your laptop. So that's the first thing, and I always wanted to be a writer, and so I thought, no one's going to pay me to be a novelist. The Pareto principle for that type of writing is so extreme. It's not 20% make 80%. It's like the top 10 make 99.99% of the money.
Right. But really quick, what made you always want to be a writer, though? Like, where did that come from?
I think it's the idea of, those goes back to the idea of the questions and like wanting to answer those questions.
Okay.
Just reading deeply into. I read some pretty intense philosophy, probably younger than I should have.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was always obsessed with these poets and just
Got
the
it.
idea of like these deep, fundamental questions of why are we here. My dad's a physicist, so I kind of came at it from a more poetic side. But we're trying to answer the same question,
Yeah.
like what is reality? And I think maybe I just have a skill for it or whatever. I was in a really good, luckily. I also kind of feel like it's a little bit of destiny for some reason because I kind of believe in that. But I went to one of the best speech and debate schools in the entire country, and we were ranked very high, and we traveled all over the country and went to tournaments. And so I was trained in a lot of ways in writing, in speeches, and public speaking, and debate, and oratory, and logic, and coming up with arguments.
Yeah.
From the time I was fairly young. So I think it was a combination of it. It's like in Jim Collins, talks about the three Venn diagrams. Like you should do something that you actually can be good at, something that you're passionate about, and something that the world wants,
Yeah.
and kind of finding that middle.
Yeah.
And I think I had some confidence for it, and then the world told me that I was fairly good at it. I was ranked pretty high, and so then that makes you feel better about it, and you want to kind of dig into things that people tell you that you're good
Right.
at because you get the validation from the world, et cetera, et cetera. Anyways, this is a long answer. It's a philosophical. I don't know. I just liked it, and
Yeah.
people said I was good at it, and then you can also monetize it. It's
Right.
very difficult to monetize, just
Yeah.
the same way that you can monetize being an actor, you can monetize being.
Yeah, it's an amazing skill.
But it's very unlikely. But I also am the type of person that's like, well, someone does it,
Yeah.
so there's got to be a way. And so if it takes me 25 years or whatever, I'm just going to put in the work necessary to get there. So I kind of, when I was younger, decided I'm going to be a professional writer, philosopher, teacher, speaker type of person. That's just what I wanted to be. And so I realized that copywriting and nonfiction ghostwriting was a a way to professionally write. It's not getting a $5 million advance for your next novel and then giving you 3 years to write it because your last one won the Pulitzer Prize and whatever, you're not Jonathan Franzen or something, but it's an entry point so that I can go to work and do this and write and think for a living, even though it's not exactly the way I wanted. It's a means to an end in a way. And so I was doing that for a long time, and then MentorBox started, and they asked me to basically join the team as the first content writer, and then it just quickly evolved. And so I think a lot of it is just being incredibly aggressive in a way. I remember Alex Mayer, my mentor and the founder of MentorBox, he actually hired like 30 or 40 people for the first round of the job.
Yeah, I remember
just paid
that.
them,
Right.
and which is convenient for him. But not everyone can do that. But he didn't want to guess at who was going to be best based on a resume. Just write it, and whichever one is the best, that's who we hire. And then for every subsequent month after that, he asked me to do it. So firstly, it's like a lot of practice. I was obsessively practicing to get really good at this skill every day for years and years and years without getting paid. So I would read books and I would journal on their structure of like how are they organized chapter by chapter, and why did they start with these type of sentences, and why did they, and listening to vocabulary lectures about how to improve my vocabulary. And I was very on purpose. I was very, very on purpose about trying to become a professional writer and thinking of it as a skill. And so I think the first answer is just preparation meets luck is preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah.
So I was preparing for 3 or 4 years, and for other people, I think why is this relevant? Who cares about me? But the point is that sometimes you're going to have to just eat shit for 4 years without getting any validation from anyone.
Absolutely.
But if you're getting better in theory, and you can also have virtual accountability buddies or whatever that you help each other and that sort of thing. So you're going to have to do a lot of work that you're not getting paid for a long time. And eventually, so I got paid, and then I said, hey, well, you have a newsletter, I can do your newsletter. And then she said, oh yeah, okay, do the newsletter. And then I said, hey, your website isn't, the copy on the website is not ideal. Can I help you with the copy of the website? I said, oh yeah, okay. And then I said, I've noticed on new social media, so I just started asking basically. And so then Alex, this is like within a couple months, I went from freelancer to Alex emailing me, what do I have to pay you for you to not take any other work? And so then we negotiated that, and then a month later he said, what do I have to pay you to come to San Francisco and start this with me properly?
Yeah. And so, where were you at this point though when this was
in
going
Guadalajara,
on?
Mexico.
Okay.
Wow,
Yeah.
man, jeez.
So that was a massive decision.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's funny, lifestyle was about the same in terms of being able to worry about money. It was about the same, right, from where I was living comparatively. So I was getting paid a lot more, but San Francisco is one of the most
Very
expensive cities in the world. So, I was like, I didn't really, my lifestyle hasn't really improved at all. But to Alex's credit, what he promised was mentorship, basically. Like, I'm a very high level entrepreneur, and Zeus was doing like $200 million a year at the time, and said, you're never going to be the same after you work with me. And so that was 10 times more true than what he had originally promised.
Yeah.
So within a week we moved. It was right around Christmas, so we flew for Christmas for a couple of days, flew back, gave everything away or sold what we could in a couple of days. My wife flew up to San Francisco to find an apartment while I was driving there, and then worked 100 hours a week for the first 2 years. And went from writer to content coordinator to director of content to chief content officer to chief operating officer, and so a lot of it is there's so many different. So to answer your question, like how did this happen, it's
You put in the work.
it's 10 years of insane work.
Right.
So it's not there's no magic trick.
Yeah.
It's being reliable.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's reliability. It's like they have. It was funny. I was scrolling through Facebook and someone had talked. There was some kind of like pyramid, and at the top it said CEO, and then it said executive, and then it said VP, and then it was manager, and all the way down to worker. And it was someone that was. They were making the point of this being like a not a fair game, basically. And to the person's credit, she was not arguing that the system was broke and therefore I'm a victim. She was arguing why you should be an entrepreneur, because you can kind of make your own reality. And I'm like, okay, great.
There's no ceiling.
Yeah, exactly. There's no ceiling. But at the same time, I thought, this is actually false, because the CEO of McDonald's was a fry cook, and the CEO of UPS was a driver. Like, there are companies that are meritocracies, right? And so you get an opportunity, and you not only nail that opportunity. So here's the trick: you become so good that you get an entry point. Then you nail your position so intensely, over and over and over again, that it becomes like 2 hours what should take 8 hours. And then you fill that 6 hour gap with, what else can I do? And not only what else can I do, but I already have things that I've thought of that we should be doing. Let me do them for us. Doing them, and then saying, well, I can work more than 8 hours. What can I do for another 4 or 5?
Yeah.
And you compound that over and over and over and over, and you get more responsibility, and then then you're like, oh wow, this person, I can trust this person with anything, basically. And ultimately, what the CEO is I can trust this person with everything.
Yeah.
It goes so at this point, there's only a few things that I need board approval for, and anything else I can basically do, and that's complete trust.
Yeah.
But it's earned.
Absolutely. Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah.
That's a heck of a story. Yeah, but I love it.
I don't know if hopefully that wasn't boring, but
No.
inspirational, I guess, hopefully.
It's good. It's super interesting. It goes to show, like, from what I get from it, is that the work ethic, right? It's just like you were relentless, you were resilient, and you never stopped. You wanted to get to that next level. You wanted to keep learning from these top level people, the mentorship, and that's where it got you now. And that's why I want to talk about this next subject, which is mindset, right? And I want us to keep in the context of how do you acquire a CEO mindset, because the thing is, you were learning under these amazing people like Alex Mayer, Ty Lopez, right? So they're intense guys. They're very knowledgeable. So I could imagine you have to have a lot of thick skin at certain points when they test you or they're pushing you or you're not delivering sometimes, right? And we were in Ty Lopez's mastermind. We seen him go off on his whole staff one time. And I was like, whoa, like, all right. So how does someone acquire the CEO mindset if they're really serious about building a business and just take it to the next level?
Yeah, I think a CEO mindset, I think you have to juggle extreme confidence in execution on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment basis with also deep humility, knowing that most of what you're going to do is not going to be ideal. Right. So think about it this way. Your job ultimately is to make decisions. Because at a CEO level, you have a team that's doing a lot of the groundwork, if you will, right? But your job is to make decisions. But in order to make good decisions, you need to have real data, and you cannot have real data if you don't go full go. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So if I'm choosing between A and B, and I say, okay, I'm going to choose A, knowing that if A doesn't work, the goal is to try A as much as possible and as confidently as possible without losing our shirt, right?
Yeah.
So how can I know that A is either the winner or is a loser as quickly as possible without losing money, right? Or losing enough money.
Mm-hmm.
And you just kind of do that 10 times a day times the whole year. That's basically your job, right? Is to make those decisions. And I think sometimes people that are trying not to get fired, let's say, they're just like doing their job, are not going full go because they worry about the consequences of losing.
Yeah.
They worry about blame, right? And you see this actually in a lot of big corporations where they lose that entrepreneurial spirit. They lose that firepower. They lose that intensity, that creativity. And they're just trying not to fuck up, basically, right? That's what they're, sorry, I don't know if this is...
It's all good.
Yeah.
Keep it real.
They're trying their best to keep everything smooth.
Yeah.
But keeping everything smooth is not going to win. You know, right? Does that make sense?
It's like, because it has to get messy.
Yeah. It not only does it have to get if it doesn't get messy, it means that you're not being creative and you're not trying things.
Right.
You're not trying to hit home runs. You're just trying to maintain its ego, right? And it's managing risk. And fair enough, you know, if you're a publicly traded company, whatever. But there's ways to do it in a way that it's kind of like if you were investing, you know, 30% bonds, you know, 80% stocks, whatever it may be, right? And
we could just go.
Yeah, we did.
Sorry to interrupt, but you have the room only for an hour. Do you want me to add another hour on?
Yeah, what time is it right now?
It's a little after 4.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we can just add another hour.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Just
Thank
wanted to
you.
go.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We'll just edit that out.
yeah, CEO mindset. So I think that sometimes your job ultimately is to make decisions, and in order to make those decisions, you have to have real data. And in order to have real data, you have to go for it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, it's like, you know, in school, some people half-ass and they don't study.
Mhm.
So then you don't know whether or not you're smart or whether or not you really like this subject or whether or not you could have gotten good grades.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, you're protecting your ego because you know that if you went for it, if you just studied all the time and that's all you did and you still didn't get a good grade, then you have to look in that mirror.
Yeah.
And you have to
Very
say,
true.
oh, there's something wrong with me, or there's something wrong with my systems, or maybe I'm not that smart. So I think a lot of people protect themselves, and that happens in business a lot. So I think you have to, what I've noticed, the biggest thing is just making a decision with the data that you have and going all in to get real data, and then using that new data to make a new decision.
Gotcha.
It's just a constant, like, it's a weird dichotomy that you have to be incredibly confident and humble at the same time.
Yeah. And what are you doing like on a daily basis right now to just, you know, keep your mind sharp and just taking it to the next level?
I basically brainwash myself with what I allow into my brain.
Okay.
So I have an affirmation in the morning that I listen to. So this is from Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. He talks about having your burning desire and writing it down, and we've all heard that, you know, we should have gratitude and all of this kind of stuff, right? So I have basically a mantra, you could call it, or an affirmation, or a prayer, you might even call it, that I've written, and I write a new one every year, and it's with my goals, it's gratitude, it's how I want to be, my virtues, the vices that I want to get rid of, that sort of thing. And it's what I write it down, and then I record it,
Mhm.
and then I listen to it every morning.
Okay.
And
So you're listening to your own voice.
I'm listening to my own voice.
Okay, I like that. I've heard that from someone else too.
Yeah, and it just automates it. It makes it easier. I do it in the morning. I do it at night. So that's sort of a constant reminder of who I want to be. I have posters and visual aids around my house that are optimized for brainwashing myself for the ideas and the concepts that I want. The books that I read, the content that I allow, like I don't watch random television. I don't watch random YouTube videos. Everything that even the people that I follow on Instagram, I only follow people that are either family, and even not all my family. Family that I trust is not going to be negative, and otherwise, basically virtual mentors, people that are like your content, like just constant. Imagine if all they paid attention to was someone like your content times 10, they would be brainwashing themselves slowly but surely. That would be their only. It would all be positive and uplifting and something that they're going to learn. You know, like Tom Bilyeu, and it's like you and Tom Bilyeu and Ed Milet and Jocko Willink and just people like that are giving constant value all the time. They're
Right.
not trying to sell you something, except for maybe one every 2 weeks or whatever. And fair enough, that people have to make a living. But
Of course.
Just I'm very sensitive to negativity.
Yeah. Same here.
And
Same
so I just don't allow it. I don't allow it any room for it. So it's been years and years and years of brainwashing myself.
Yeah.
So that's how I do it.
I like that, man. And do you mind sharing like that mantra or like the affirmation you came up with this year?
It's like 7 minutes long.
Okay, just maybe like in a nutshell, like what is it? Because I'm on the spot. I'm like interested.
Yeah. So it starts with a prayer that's, I think it's like St. Thomas Aquinas or something,
Okay.
some prayer that he came up with. And I do the Serenity prayer as well at the end for kind of stoicism. I have my goals for my personal goals, and I've divided them into like health, with relationship goals with my wife. I have goals for finances, but it's important to always, any financial goal needs to be attached to what you're willing to do to get it,
Okay.
which is really what value are you willing to give to other people. So it has to be anything that you want in a financial way. It has to be it should be, I believe, a reward for some value that you're giving.
Yeah.
So I also talk about what is the value that I'm willing to give, what are the virtues that I want to have. So kindness, love, quick to forgiveness. I take extreme ownership over everything. The obstacle is the way. When I'm afraid or feel procrastination, I'll remember the action cures fear, et cetera, et cetera. Things like that, right?
Oh, yeah.
So that are the end of it is something like, I have to remind myself, day in and day out that if you want to be world class at anything, you have to imagine yourself like an Olympian, and it's almost like an avatar or like a mask that you wear, like a good mask, an alter ego, if you will.
Right.
So I have a lot of those in there. So alter egos what would someone who was just total forgiveness, like Jesus level, what would they do? How would they act? How would
Yeah.
they be in the world? And how would someone that was as hardworking as an Olympic athlete, like how would they? They don't complain about waking up early and having to
Yeah.
do 5 workouts or whatever. That's their life, So it's an articulate version of that, something like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and even Tim Story talks about that, like what he says about every day play at that Olympian level, and it's like either you're going to play at the gold level, the bronze, or the platinum, right? It's just, it makes perfect sense, and it's like the Olympians don't make excuses. It's like they're Olympians for a reason. They work their ass off.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I liked Olympian as a metaphor is because it's by definition world class.
Yeah.
Because there's no subjectivity to it, right? So we're in Los Angeles. There's some actors that probably feel like they're world class, and they just haven't made a break because they have a series of reasons,
Mhm.
and some of them might be legitimate. That the industry is hard to break into or whatever, and they have but. Anyways, I won't get into it. My point is that something like acting might be subjective.
Yeah.
Right? There is a subjective level to it of what's good. But in the Olympics, the best are the best.
Yeah.
So that's why I like that. Cal Newport's so good they can't ignore you idea.
Yeah, very good one.
That there's no. You want to get to a point. It's like singing, right? I always think about this. Imagine. Actually, one of my favorite videos on YouTube of all time is the singer Jewel. Do you know her?
I know, Julia.
Okay, so she's just insane singer, right? And they go to this karaoke place, and they have her in prosthetics, so no one can really tell, what she's wearing, or they can't tell that she's Jewel because they have like a prosthetic nose and she's whatever, and they go to this local karaoke place wherever, and all night she's just kind of sitting in the back and acting like she's this nervous person, and just like a lot of karaoke places, it's very background, right? You're not paying attention to it at all, and then when one of your friends goes up, you start cheering them, and then when your friend goes away, you go back to drinking and doing whatever you're doing, right? So no one's really paying attention. It's not like you're going to a show. She goes up there, And within 5 seconds of her first couple notes, everyone, it's kind of, you're like literally in the middle of talking, half drunk, and then everyone says, kind of makes this face like, what is that? It was just, it's so good that you can't ignore it.
Yeah.
And then everyone just turns to her, and they're like, what? Everyone gets out their phone, and they don't know that this is Jewel. This is just some random, she doesn't look like Jewel at all. But she's so good that you can't ignore it. You know what I mean? And I just saw Emma Stone this morning. So I was at brunch with my wife, and she was sitting right next to us. And she's obviously world class. I think she's been up for Best Actress, a couple of times. She's just insane.
Yeah.
And she's in person, she's not, and she probably would admit to this too, she's not like, a Megan Fox, type of, guy
Stands out
because
like
she's
that.
so pretty kind of,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
right.
It's talent. She's like an artist, right?
Yeah.
And when you saw her in person there, and she's just like, obviously just hanging out at brunch, just wearing like a sweatshirt or whatever, she doesn't feel like a movie star.
Right.
You know what I mean? She's just,
Yeah.
there's nothing like Marilyn Monroe kind of stunning about her, you know who she is because she's famous, but she's there because she's that good. And so I guess my point is that I think about what I want in my life and what I want to give, and I think that it requires an insane level of skill
Yeah.
to pull it off.
I agree.
And in order to get that insane level of skill, it takes an insane level of dedication and precision and perseverance and being obsessed with progress and not the outcome, just like an Olympian. So it's just brainwashing. Everything around my house is all positive. Everything that I watch on Instagram is all positive. I literally I go into Instagram and I'm excited about what I'm going to learn because I filtered.
Yeah, it's intentional.
Yeah, it's super intentional.
It's not you're not scrolling down the feed,
No.
looking at all this bullshit. It's just like
Yeah.
it's like you know where you're going to go and what you want to consume.
100%.
And that's you being in control, though. That's a huge difference because a lot of people let Instagram control them, and that's what's the huge problem, right? It's like you can control it. It's like you're navigating. It's like I know which direction I want to go and what I want to do today.
Yeah.
There's no excuses anymore, man.
No, there
like,
isn't. No.
My friends or whatever, my family's. It's like, then don't talk to them
Yeah,
and
it's
get new friends or just spend your time consuming badass podcasts
Yeah.
people that say, oh, well, I don't have enough money to buy these audiobooks
Yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever.
come
It's
on,
like
man.
podcasts,
Come
man,
on.
YouTube channels, like,
Yeah.
there's so much free stuff out there. Give me a
Yeah,
break.
yeah.
Like, if you don't want to spend the $7 for MentorBox, fair enough. Okay, it is what it is. I bet that you can because you probably are spending $7 on a bunch of other bullshit.
Or a
But-
cup of coffee a week.
yeah, but even if that was true, because you're in Kenya or something, right? And you make $200 a year or something. You know what I mean? Like, fair enough.
Yeah.
But even then, if you have access to the internet, you know what I mean? Like, even someone
course.
like that
Yeah.
could go to an internet cafe or whatever and save their money and then just learn
Just consume
e-commerce or something, or learn how to do some copywriting or learn
Yeah.
and because it's been done.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
so it's possible. It's just very difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I
a great
agree.
point. I want to go back to some of the stuff with the mentor box thing. So, like at your tenure there, what would you say is? I don't even want to put a number on it, like 1, 2, or top 3, but like what were some of those like maybe key things you learned from Alex, or even skills, or we can call them best pieces of advices that there's no way you could have learned it from anybody else but him. Kind of destiny was there in that tenure. He was your mentor, and you learned these things and took it away.
Yeah, that's a good question. Lack of risk aversion, I think, would be one. So knowing when to bet big, and knowing that in order to win, you have to bet big in a way, but in order to effectively bet, you have to be skilled and you have to prepare yourself to be able to execute on that in a proper way. So a lot of, and not just him, a lot of entrepreneurs that are really high level do not ask the question as often as the average person is like, what's the downside? They're aware of the downside, but they know that you eventually got to put all your chips on the table.
Mhm.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, think about, actually, great analogy, like at the World Series of Poker, right?
Yeah.
To win, ultimately, there's going to be at least 1 or 2 times where you have to go all in.
Yeah.
Like throughout the whole event, it's just going to happen. So I would say that I've definitely become less conservative, with money in a way, right? So I've hired a lot of people even in my own personal life, for companies with my wife and that sort of thing. And just like, do we have the money for it? Like, barely, but who cares?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we got to trust the system.
Exactly.
What are we going to invest in, right? Like, we're going to invest in ourselves, and I think that invest in our own companies, and you got to do it smartly, right? You got to do it intelligently, and you can't be risky for the sake of being risky. But you got to go intensely. So I would say, something about risk,
Okay.
just like being riskier than you probably think.
Gotcha.
Because listen, we're only here, maybe, I don't know, we don't know, but
Yeah.
we're here in theory this one time.
Exactly.
So it's like, what do you want?
Yeah.
Like, here we are. Like,
And-
what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
Exactly.
and let me just kind of interrupt you on that. Like, I hate when people kind of say like, oh, I'm all for playing the long game, but then I hate when people say like, oh, you have the rest of your life, or you have so much time. But it's like, how do you know that? Like, you can get killed in a car accident. Like, something tragic can happen. You don't know when your death sentence is. So why would you sit there and always just like sit there and not play big and maximize your potential, or invest in yourself, right? And roll the dice.
Yeah. And I think if you do it the right way, what I'm trying to optimize for actually in that way is living many lives. So what I don't like the idea of doing the same thing for 35 years.
Yeah.
Right.
This is my personality. I think some people, maybe they do enjoy that. Listen, we're talking to a certain type of person, right? Like, there's a lot of people that are just never going to listen to this, and
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah.
So I think we've already filtered people that are listening to this are
Mhm.
kind of go-getters, and they're trying to figure out
Absolutely.
how to get the thing that they want. So, I'm not trying to say that someone that works at a job in the government for 35 years is hasn't lived a meaningful life, because in a lot of ways maybe they have more time for their children or whatever, and it is what it is.
Yeah.
But if you do want some great thing, or you want to impart something, you want to move the needle in whatever way,
Yeah.
I feel like you need to kind of get past the point of scarcity as quickly as possible,
Yeah.
and into a point of abundance, because then you can make real decisions,
Mhm.
right? So if we just, even knowing what we know now, if we all just became billionaires tomorrow, what would we do? We probably have 6 months of having some fun,
Yeah.
right? And fair enough.
So we get bored of that.
We get bored of that.
Yeah.
I remember Alex said to me one time, we were driving in his Ferrari, and I was kind of asking him about the meaning of life and things like that. And he touched the Ferrari. I'll never forget this. He touched the Ferrari, and he goes, "After 5 days, this is a car." And I think that's really profound. So
Yeah.
after
It's like, how else? Yeah.
like after 10 Michelin star restaurants, like, a steak is a steak. You know what I mean? And a lot of that dopamine is the newness.
Of course.
And
Excitement.
once you've checked it off, it's you're looking for the next thing, right? And what ends up happening often is you reach the high end of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and self-actualization is really altruism in a way, right? So what ultimately the punchline is that we probably would start a charity, or we would do something for this community,
Yeah.
or that's what we would do, right? We would take the skills that we have and we would try to give back without having to be obsessed about profit or paying bills or
Yeah.
whatever it may be, because we would, even if we were just break even, which is the beauty of charity, it doesn't matter, because it's this self-fulfilling engine that just is good for the world.
Yeah.
And so, for me, I want to get to that point where I can truly be creatively free with my brain and my skills, and not take into consideration paying rent ever.
Yeah.
Like, don't even think about it.
Right.
I don't want to have to think about it.
Yeah.
If I want to make the decision to start a school in Ukraine for the kid to the Crimean, war or something,
Mhm.
then I want to be able to do that on the spot because I don't know what that is. I don't have that like specific thing in mind, but I want to get to that level of freedom
Right.
as quickly as possible. And so that's why, going back to the bet, you got to shrink that 35 years to 5 because you only have so much time, right?
Right.
So I want to say, because if I can get to that point by the time I'm 40, then I have between 40 and 50 to, let's say, write some, incredible novels or,
Yeah.
some books that are going to be read for 500 years. But then when I'm 50 to 60, I can, help with, homelessness. And then from 60 to 70, I can, does that make sense?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
so,
absolutely. I
so
love it.
whereas if I waste 40 years because I was conservative,
Yeah.
then I don't have time to move the needle
Yeah.
because now I'm too old and I don't
then
have enough
then
money.
you live with regret.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and then you're going to deliver it. So that if you want to get from if you want to get to 100 and you started out at 4, and my family was my father was homeless most of my life, and my mom worked just above minimum wage. It wasn't like I was very not silver spoon. My
Yeah.
grandparents were migrant workers on my mom's side. Literally picking in the fields, from a Steinbeck novel. And my grandparents on my dad's side were coal miners in Kentucky. Like, very,
Blue
salt of the
collar,
earth,
yeah.
blue collar,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
not college educated. We're not from like, Cambridge. And so, like I'm starting from now, same. Also true that I'm not, in some family in the hills of the volcanoes of Guatemala.
Right.
So I'm on the relative scale, like I'm very privileged.
Absolutely.
But also on the relative scale of the United States, I'm not. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's, kind of both.
Yeah, it's a weird dynamic.
So if I want to get to that level of freedom, and if you want to get to that level of freedom, or if anyone wants to get to that level of freedom, no matter where you started from, and then you want to do something with the freedom that's not hedonistic, right? Because people do that. They 35 years, and then they're like, okay, now I'm going to travel. Now I'm going to go do what I want. And that's from the time they're 65 to 75, 80. And so that, which fair enough, you want to, live 10 years of being able to go on cruises and enjoy
Yeah.
your life because you didn't do it because you were whatever. Then now you're going to start giving back when you're 75.
Right. Exactly.
Like, fuck off.
Yeah.
Like I want to start that
As soon as possible.
that altruism as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And like fortunately or unfortunately, the game is in a lot of ways money.
Yeah.
And so not having to worry about any of that as quickly as possible, you can start focusing your energy and your skills and your abilities and your time into things that can really move the needle, not just in your survival, but in the greater masses. And I feel sort of called
Yeah.
I think I was given a series of skills and a mindset and whatever, whether it's luck or whatever, I feel like it would be like unheroic for me to not take advantage of my
Yeah, it's almost
gift.
like you'd be doing yourself a disservice in
Yeah.
the world.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
So let's talk a little bit more about like the freedom that you're chasing, right? So with that freedom, there's going to be a cost with everything. So like, what are you willing to sacrifice for a cost going forward? Because you have a lot on your plate right now. You're in the CEO, table seat now. Let's say there. So it's a completely different role, a lot more responsibilities. You're married. We talked about earlier that you haven't had a date night with your wife, and that's super important to you guys, right? Because you guys have a great marriage. You guys want to keep that relationship growing. So what are you willing to sacrifice for a cost?
It's a day-to-day decision.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I mostly just care about my company and my employees and my wife and my family. I text with my cousins and my sister in a group text. I try to do that every day. Like the simple things. I think a lot of it is, most of my time and most of my energy. I really do think of myself as like a mental athlete.
Yeah.
So, how I sleep. Like I have this, ring that like tells me how I'm sleeping every day. Like I really do, and fairly, I like wear the same thing every day now. And like I try not to waste any mental energy on any decision that is not moving the needle forward.
Yeah.
And it's weird.
Oh, you got that.
And I've kind of automated certain things. Like I have a membership to sauna, and so my wife and I will go to the sauna, and phones are not allowed, right? So
Cool.
It's kind of optimized. One, if you read books on longevity, if you go into a sauna, it is one of the predictors of long life and those blue zones. So that's good. It's like mental clarity. It's like it forces me to calm down.
Yeah.
It forces me to get away from my phone, and it forces me to hang out with my wife. And we also walk there. So we walk to the sauna, which is 1.5 miles there and 1.5 miles back, and so we're
Yeah.
we built in. The answer is, what am I willing to sacrifice? Like nothing, because I think it's a false dichotomy.
Yeah.
Right? So, and nothing that I want, right? So I want health, I want a relationship with my wife, I want a relationship with my family, and I want this freedom, and I want my company to go well. So a lot of it is just sacrificing a lack of discipline is probably what you're sacrificing.
Yeah,
Right? That's what it is. That's what it is. I'm boring, basically.
Gotcha.
My life is incredibly boring, and I don't drink because I know if I drink I will not sleep well, and if I don't sleep well, then I might have a hangover, and if I have a hangover, I'm not going to perform at work,
Yep.
and then that puts me 8 hours behind, and then compound that over even once a week or once every 2 weeks over the course of the year. That means I was 25 days out of the year I was not at capacity.
Yeah.
What could I have done in those 25? Then it trickles, right? Because if I come to work hungover, every employee, I'm setting a cultural standard.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not like, it's the hardest thing is food, for sure, because, and we've talked about this privately, is that some of the reward of like, I fucking killed it this week. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I did my morning routine, I did whatever, I went to work, I nailed it, I have a checklist of things that I need to do every day. I checked everything off, I also, was hanging out with my wife, and I did, she's not mad at me right now. Like everything's going well.
Yeah.
And that, for me, oftentimes the reward that I want is like, I just want a fucking pizza. You know what I mean? Like, and so that's probably the hardest thing for me, which is, in the big scheme of things, I'm not like unhealthy.
Yeah.
But that's, I don't know, this is kind of a meta answer, but I don't really want to sacrifice anything.
Yeah.
But in order to do that and be as militant as I am, I focus, I like have, dimensionalizations of things that I need to take care of, right? I need to take care of my mental health. I go to a therapist every week, right? It's like part of the process.
Yeah.
Because I know that I can use that. I need it, right? Like there's so much pressure, and I can't really be a victim. I
How
can't.
long did you start doing that?
Probably 6 months ago.
Wow, hey, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I would love to do that. Love to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I saw it was in my my insurance, and I was like, oh yeah,
Sure.
I'm gonna take care of
Oh,
this.
yeah.
Like, it was like $15 copay for like $150 an hour,
Wow.
session. I do it
Awesome.
like clockwork every week
Wow.
now.
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't talk about shit. I just, whatever I'm thinking, or but it's all about me, and most of the time, and sometimes that's important. You just need to
You just need to vent.
and
Yeah.
get whatever,
Yeah.
and I'm annoyed that I, whatever, like, and I can't say that in most situations, because I don't allow myself to be a victim of anything, and I
Yeah.
know that I'm capable of everything, and I take extreme ownership of my life, et cetera, so I have all these mantras and whatever, but then sometimes it's nice to just be like, you know what, that sucked, and to kind of to bake that in. It's basically creating systems, right? So if the one thing that I haven't done, which I wish I had, was sports.
Okay.
'Cause I really like competitive sports.
Yeah, remember you used to do running.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but even I like the total loss of consciousness, awareness when you're in like a game that has rules. Because running
Yeah.
ends up becoming a meditation, but you
Mhm.
still are in your head. But which there's some benefit to that. But
So it's not like
playing basketball
okay,
or,
'cause there's like a system
or tennis
plan.
or something. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
you're not thinking about anything, other than the game, and so
Yeah,
it's like
winning.
this wonderful
Yeah.
release,
Yeah.
So I wish
have
I
to hang up my jersey on basketball for a while now.
I know you're.
That's how I injured myself, so I'm not going to do that.
That's
for
what
a while.
happens when you play one-on-one with me.
But what about the
I don't know. I think a lot of times, people that want something really incredible, and then they say, I think my worry is that the question, like, what are you willing to sacrifice,
Yeah.
is setting people up to give themselves an excuse.
Yeah.
Because they say, oh, well, I'm not, yeah, that's good for Jonathan, but I'm not willing to give up my time with my whatever it may
Yeah.
be. And it's like, fair enough. You shouldn't, which is why my answer was nothing. Right?
Yeah.
I don't want to give up anything. But in order to not give up anything, you have to be super militant with your schedule.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
That's
But I
the-
like that though. You're the first person that answered nothing. Most people, they always come up with something, and I always like thinking like, oh, why do you have to sacrifice something?
Yeah.
Because that for me, if someone asked me that, I'd be like, no, I'm not going to sacrifice anything because I will find a way to get it all done. That's just my nature, and I know I'm different from other people, but that's why when I heard that, I was like, yes, like fuck yeah, like you shouldn't have to sacrifice anything. No, you can still do it all.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think the two things that I'm not doing as perfectly as I want is food
Yeah.
on occasion and having some kind of community, like sport, like guy thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Just
absolutely.
I played a little bit of basketball for a while, and then I got really hurt. My wife was like, "Don't play that anymore,
Dangerous.
But anyway, so let's finish this question real quick
Yeah.
because I went off on a million tangents. But yeah, just I think managing risk. I think another one is to be perfect is the idea of false dichotomy.
Yeah.
Like to Alex, everything is a false dichotomy. Like you don't really have to choose. You're just not being creative enough.
Right.
So-
I like that.
Love that.
Right. So that is something that he for sure has taught me. And then I think the most practical thing is just the idea of like the hard skills of building a subscription consumer brand at scale.
Yeah.
And the nuts and bolts of that. And we could have a whole other podcast where we just talk about how to build a consumer brand and what a funnel is and the
Right.
how to run ads and how to monetize the back end and all that's kind of tactical. But he's I told my wife he rang the bell at the New York Stock Exchange
Mhm.
when he sold Zeus, which think about if you do the math, there's 50 weeks in a year that it's kind of open, right, because of like holidays or whatever.
Right.
And there's 5 days, so that's 250, and then half of them are usually something that's going on in like culturally, right? So it could be like a politician, or it could be someone that's an activist or an actor, or something just something that they put on CNBC and it'll be fun. And then the other half are usually like sales of businesses or whatever, right? So you figure, let's say half of those, that's 125 businesses that are celebrating the sale of their business on the New York Stock Exchange, enough that they ring the bell. So 125 a year, right, are at that level.
Yeah.
And there's 7 billion people
I
on the
know.
planet, right? So it's harder than being an all-star in the NBA. You know what I mean? Like it's like,
Yeah.
or not an all-star. It's harder than being in the NBA.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
really, really high level. So I consider like in terms of business, like I'm being mentored on a day-to-day basis, like with an NBA basketball player, if I wanted to be a basketball player. Like
Yeah.
it is, and it's objectively at that level.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the day-to-day aha moments that I have with business are, and I know that if I talk to on the street, if we just walk outside and we talk about digital marketing, consumer brands, like I probably am better than everyone on the street. Just like, at least in terms of my experience and my knowledge.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a cocky way. I just mean in terms of, if we just went down the street and asked the next 100 people, how do you start a subscription consumer brand online? Using paid advertising, or better yet, how much have you spent on paid advertising on digital marketing? Just everyone on the street.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe one person might be kind of at that level, but I'm like just nothing compared to what Alex has done.
Yeah.
So that's the beauty of it. There's so many levels. It's like
Yeah.
I feel like I'm, a professional tennis player that loses 6-1, 6-1 to Roger Federer, and it's like I'm still really good.
Yeah.
I'm like I'm a professional tennis player.
Yeah.
I'm top 200 in the world. You know what I mean? But you're not Roger Federer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
Alex has spent over $500 million in paid advertising in Facebook. So the third would be just the tactics.
Yeah.
All of that.
Yeah, that's what's so awesome, man. Is like we've had Alex on the podcast a couple of times, and we're very lucky to sit down with him there at Thai Space and just answering our questions, like our selfish questions, like his level of knowledge and his like elite level of entrepreneurism, right? And then you like learning under him for so many years, and even us having like the privilege of you consulting in our business for a little bit, right? Kind of showing us some stuff we didn't know about. So that's why I was so excited to get you on the show, man, and just really like see like where you've come and how much you've done and stuff. So my next question is, what's next for Jonathon Kendall and MentorBox? I would say in the next maybe 5 to 10 years. Like what's next for you guys, and even for like for you, it could be personal and business wise, and MentorBox too.
So this year we're gonna launch an app and go really hard in social media. We may flirt with going public sometime next year. We could definitely look for an exit probably in 2 to 3 years if the market's right and the offer's right. By that point we'll probably have 1,000 books on video, which will be just even the content for a buyer would be a lot. And we have the intellectual property for all of those. And I hope to be 500,000 subscribers, something like that. Be more of a household name. My goal, I could give you our plan for this year, quarter over quarter, and there's 7 things that we're going to do every quarter, and what I mean. Like there's that, but I think it would be kind of boring in a way. In a lot of ways, going back to the idea of a CEO mindset, you have to plan for your vision.
Right.
And the vision is to have people understand what a video book is, in a way that everyone here understands what an audiobook is. So it's an alternative. So did you read the book physical? Oh, do you read physical books or do you read the Kindle? That's a normal question.
Yeah.
Or do you listen to the audiobook? Right?
Yeah.
Or do you watch the video book on MentorBox?
Got it.
If we get to that level, then I think we've won. And I think it's important because for 2 reasons. One, it democratizes the information for international, because the way that publishing works is you purchase the rights, a publisher purchases the rights to a book for a specific country. And most countries do not purchase the rights to a book because they just don't think that it's going to sell.
Yeah.
Right? So of the, let's say, 300 books a year that someone maybe should read or could read and it would help them, maybe 3 of them are published in India, for example, right? Or 2 of them are published in Guatemala, or maybe 1 of them is published in Brazil, because a Guatemalan publisher is not going to, one, the culture, isn't as, reading centric as, some other cultures, and, because, well, they're more in like a survival, mode, a lot of them, in just various third world countries. And, they feel like they don't have time or whatever it may be, and then they don't have access to it because there's like 2 libraries in the whole country, or, or there's no bookstores, or the bookstores are, don't have the right books in a way. And what we offer is, for $7, even if someone makes, $1,000 a year, they can afford that. $50 a year. So if I make $1,000 a year, $50 is a lot, right? But we can open the world to 1,000 books,
Right.
that they literally can't buy. You can't even buy the Audible in those countries. So that's one vision that we have, is like kind of democratizing this information.
That's awesome.
And providing it, because it's digital, in a way that people can get unlimited access in other countries where this basically giving like a world-class university level education
Yeah.
with the top level people in the world for insanely cheap.
Yeah.
Where it's the price of like 2 audiobooks a year, but you get 500 books.
Yeah.
So, and I also believe that a lot of these books, it's a kind of I love books, but it's kind of an archaic technology in
Yeah.
a way, right? So it's organized the way it is because of it's a tool in a way, right? So it's like, how do I get the information from my brain that I've accumulated for 10 years into your brain most effectively?
Mhm.
And for a long time it was, we're going to tell this long story and it's going to be chapter by chapter and it is what it is. But the reason why it's 250 pages or 300 pages or organized in this way is because if it's organized in that way, we deem that it's worth $25, right? So that the publisher can make $15 and the author can make that, and the distributor can make this, and Barnes and Noble can make this, and everyone is making a bunch of money off of this person's idea, and like fair enough. But I think it should be like the author to everyone,
Yeah.
as quickly as possible.
Yeah. And just to interject on that really quick, do
Yeah.
you see that being like a trend now? Is maybe like authors doing more like video books per se instead of like the archaic way of just like writing a book and physical
100%.
copy? Okay.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the idea of like online courses for us in our world, it feels like it's saturated, right?
Right.
It's not. We are 1% of what it's going to be in 25 years.
It's crazy.
We are at the very, very tiny little bit of democratizing in I just saw this app where you sign up to, it's called like, what is it called? Face or My Eyes or something like that.
Mhm.
And it's for blind people. And if they're like at a store or something, or they're trying to do something, they push this button and it FaceTimes like a random person that can see. And then they say, hey, I'm trying to get the almond organic
Oh,
milk or
shit.
whatever.
Oh,
and you're
wow.
like the eyes for the person. You're like, I thought, oh my God, that's an incredible piece of
Wow.
technology. Like that's a
Jeez.
badass app,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that's solving this incredible problem.
Yeah.
And so I guess my point is that like that is democratization. That's like the beauty of technology if
Yeah.
it's done well, right?
Yeah.
So I think the barriers to entry for sharing, for someone that's world class or whatever they are and sharing that information used to be very high, and now they're almost non-existent, and we just want to be a part of that. So whether or not someone an author has a YouTube channel and they give away all the information, that's fine. If they have a podcast and they give away all the information, that's fine. Like, my goal is not to make money because because we don't want people to watch YouTube or listen to podcasts or whatever. For us, I will often read the book or listen to the audiobook, and then I'll read like 5 summaries online that I found, and I'll watch YouTube videos of the author giving podcasts or whatever it may be, like, because I want the information over and over and over again, because
Yeah.
it'll kind of connect with me more.
It's a good idea.
Not every book,
Yeah.
but books that I really like, I'm like,
Right.
oh, I want more of this.
Yeah.
So we just want to be one of those, and I think the market is big enough, for education. I don't consider us like trying to disrupt publishing. I consider us helping to disrupt education.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
if we can get 1% of 1% of 1% of 1% of the education market, and kind of connect the dots between people that want information and giving them a cheap, palatable version of that, because we know that they're not going to read the books. So why not give them a half-hour video that they
Yeah.
can watch instead? Then I think we've done something amazing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
man, that's
Yeah.
incredible.
Love that.
I know you guys will get there.
Yeah.
I know you guys will.
Yeah, it's just a matter of time, and it's hard to predict because every quarter you have a goal, and then you execute again as confidently as
Uh-huh.
intensely as you can, and then to get that data. But then now you have new data, so what are you going to do?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the vision very simply is for people to think ebook, regular book, audiobook, video book,
Got
and
it.
for MentorBox to be audible
Got it.
for video book.
Got
So
it.
it's kind of two-pronged.
Yeah.
So
Love
awesome.
it, man.
Sure.
So Jonathan, before I ask the last question, I just want to personally, commend you and congratulate you for, this new position. just working your ass off to get to that level of just being the CEO of MentorBox. I'm truly proud of you, man. Just seeing your growth overall as a person. I know we met back in San Francisco. You guys gave Chris and I an incredible opportunity to go film there. Talk about different content within fitness, exercise. Truly amazing. You interviewed us, so I feel like we've grown into having a good friendship over here in LA. Seeing you grow, man, and I'm just proud of you. I truly am. And I look at you as a mentor as well too, because you've helped us so much just with our business and just growing our mindsets. I remember over here in the office, you just drew out this whole thing of the funnel, and I was just like, whoa! I was like, man, Jonathan's a badass. I was like, so he has so much knowledge, and it's just cool. So it's just really cool to see all that, and I really appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. And yeah, man, I know you're going to go on to do amazing things, and I just can't wait to see you just continue to just do it.
Yeah, and I echo pretty much all of that, man. I was always like, dang, how do we steal them from Alex, to our business? But just truly grateful we crossed paths, and just for you just being so cool too, and just so humble and just open with sharing knowledge and concepts and everything you learn, man. I truly appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So like you guys do. I love your authenticity.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Oh, you're just you.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how else to do it.
I know, but a lot of people, as you know, in this industry are
For
not
sure.
like that.
For
So,
sure.
yeah, I mean, there's a reason why. I mean, I reached out to you guys. I like your podcast, and I'm going to be doing a lot more this year, as we said. Just kind of stepping into this, more public role. You guys have helped me kind of think about my Instagram in the right ways and everything. So yeah, I mean, this is just the beginning.
Yeah, awesome, man. So, what is your definition of living a dynamic lifestyle?
It probably starts with self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess there's two ways to answer the question. There's one would be, me, like what is my dynamic lifestyle? And then, what would be a more like macro version of a dynamic lifestyle that people could apply to their own life.
Yeah, I want to know your definition.
My definition.
Yes.
Yeah. For me, my
Yeah,
life.
exactly.
It has something to do with freedom.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with the idea of freedom.
Caught onto that.
I think, like I said, I want to be able to, if I want to start a school in Ukraine or, go to, for altruistic reasons, but I also want to be able to experience things that are world class. I feed off of anything that's world class, and just the power of human, the ability for humans to specialize and just create awe for each other is profound. And so the ability to basically, if I have, and this is going to sound like on the surface, if you just took a Twitter of this, it would sound selfish. Because I want to be able to do whatever I want whenever I want, and really with no limits.
Yeah.
But that needs to be coupled with all of the virtues, right? So humility and kindness and altruism and courage and love and compassion and all of that. So if you combine, I know that he's a very controversial figure, but Jordan Peterson, for example, talks about the idea of becoming powerful, and he even says he uses the word monster, and basically meaning that you have the ability to overcome anything, you have the ability to influence anything, you have the ability to control your own mindset, and therefore create a ripple, a positive ripple. And that can be, it can be used for evil, or it can be used for good.
Yeah.
And so for me, a dynamic lifestyle is really nailing all of those virtues deep. That's the skill of kindness, and the skill of love, and the skill of courage, and the skill of compassion and forgiveness and dedication and discipline, and these deep virtues that are consistent through every great book.
Yeah.
Every great character in every great novel, every great leader that we've listened to a biography, every great wisdom teacher, from all of the different religions, they all reduce to sort of, a few commandments of how to live,
Yeah.
right? And we all know that to be true, but it's hard to execute.
Yeah.
It's hard to do because we get in our head and we, feel sorry for ourselves, or we have hedonistic desires or whatever it may be, and we're human.
Yeah.
So a dynamic lifestyle would be to embody those virtues all the time and couple it with the power of some kind of outward, because that's inward, right? So
Yeah.
that's like being able to control the you, the how you are as a being. And if you can combine being a good person, deeply in all of the ways, with external power, ability, skill, money, wealth, influence, persuasion, leadership, these outward skills, if you combine those two, you can really fucking move the needle.
Oh yeah.
And that's my goal. How it manifests, we'll see.
Yeah.
But that's my journey, is trying to perfect my inward, who I am as a person, and also perfecting my ability to do good.
Yeah. Love it. Powerful, man.
Jonathan, where can the listeners follow you and what you're going to be up to this year?
I almost started crying. That was intense.
That was deep.
I'm going to start doing Instagram, I think, this year. Jonathon.Kendall. I should probably get Jonathon Kendall, but it's some other person. Jonathon.Kendall. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think that'll be fair. You can go to mentorbox.com.
Cool.
Become a member. I do at least one class a month, on various subjects. So if we do a podcast. We're going to start it back up. For a while, it was top 100 in the world in business.
Yeah. This is a good podcast.
Yeah. So yeah, okay. Go to the podcast too. I'll start it back up. I actually get DMs all the time, people that are like, "Dude, I really like the podcast."
You guys had some good guests on there. Yeah.
And I was at Grant Cardone's event last year, and many people came up to me and were like, "Jonathon, Mentor Box." I was like, "Oh, I must be famous in this group,"
Yeah.
And they were like, "You got to start doing the podcast again." So I was like, yeah. So yeah, I'll start doing it. I don't know if you guys saw what I was doing on Instagram. I'm giving a little summary of everything.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching this video. We truly, truly appreciate it. If you guys are a fitness professional, you guys feel like you guys are stuck on an island, you guys feel like you guys have hit your ceiling and you guys want to get past that ceiling and break through it, make massive shifts in your guys' business, create more impact, influence, income, and independence, then grab a free call with Eric and I. At the very worst, we can talk about some stuff, laugh about some stuff, see where you're from, where we're from, what your hobbies are, but we'd love to hop on a call with you guys and see how we could help you make, some of those massive shifts and breakthroughs and get you unstuck and break through some of those plateaus in your business. So make sure to grab your free call. The link's going to be in the description box, and while you guys are at it, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Talk to you guys soon.